Hello everyone, we're from STA150 student would like to present our group project for probability and statistics subject. Our group project members had conducted an experiment on finding probability of mobile phone brand used by UiTM student. In this study, we'll first go through the background of study in order to understand what project we're going to do. First, we created a simple poll using Google Form and collect the data from the respondents. Then, the poll will send to students via WhatsApp and Telegram for them to answer the poll. Sample will be selected among UiTM Segamat students. We have separated this sample into 5 categories based on the mobile phone brand they were used. And there will be 30 trials to be conducted for this experiment. Now, let's move on to the objective. The objective of this study are, first, to construct a probability distribution function from experimental probability of getting each of the mobile phone brand. Second, to construct a probability distribution function from theoretical probability of getting each of the mobile phone brand. And thirdly, to calculate the difference between the experimental probability and theoretical probability of getting each of the mobile phone brand. For this methodology, as stated previously, the experiment will be conducted by using a simple poll. Then, the sample number are counted from the collected data by the respondents. For the experiment, every 5 random respondents will count as one trial. Firstly, we categorize our sample into 5 different mobile phone brands. The brands were labeled in alphabetical letter for Apple, Samsung, Xiaomi, Oppo, and Vivo. We then proceed to randomly pick 5 respondents in each trial. Next, we add each of the mobile phone brands and divide it by sample space to calculate and record the probability of each mobile phone brand. Now, we need to repeat this step until we get 13 trials. Then, we will record the outcome.
Assalamualaikum, I'm Putra Shanawi and I'll be talking about the experimental probability of our group. To obtain the probability of each phone brand, the total of frequency of outcome of each phone brand will be divided with the total frequency of our experiment. The outcome to find the experimental probability can be obtained by using the formula PA equal to NA over NS. By referencing to our results table, we can list down the frequency of each phone brand, which is for Apple equal to 47, for Samsung equal to 44, for Xiaomi equal to 29, for Oppo equal to 16, and for Vivo equal to 14. Then, to get the frequency of all outcome, we must add all of the frequency to get it, which is 47 plus 44 plus 29 plus 16 plus 14 equal to 150. As I mentioned, by using the formula to calculate the experimental probability, we can list down each phone probability, which is for Apple equal to 0.3133, for Samsung 0.2933, for Xiaomi 0.1933, for Oppo 0.1066, and for Vivo 0.0933. We move on to the theoretical probability for our experiment. The outcome to find the theoretical probability can be obtained by using the formula to calculate it, which is PA equal to NA over NS. Since in theory, the total of frequency of outcome of all the phones are the same, NA equal to 1, hence all phone brands have the same outcome for theoretical probability. To obtain probability of the student choose the phone brand, the total of frequency of outcome, which is 1, will be divided with the total sample space, which is 5. Hence, the theoretical probability for each phone brand is 1 over 5 equal to 0.2.
So now I will talk about the difference between experimental and theoretical probability. So we move for the first phone brand, which is Apple. So our experimental probability get that Apple conquered about 31.33% differ from its own theoretical probability, which is 20%. So to calculate the difference between experimental probability and theoretical probability, we need to subtract it. So 31.33% minus 20%, we got 11%. So based on this, we can conclude that our experimental probability is higher by 11% compared to the theoretical probability. So next, we move to Samsung. So we get that Samsung conquered about 29.33% for its experimental probability compared to its theoretical probability 20%. So to calculate the difference, we need to subtract it as usual. So 29.33% minus 20%, we got 9%. So based on this, we can conclude that the experimental probability is higher by 9%. Let's move to the next part, which is Xiaomi phone brand. So we get that Xiaomi experimental probability is 19.30%, differ from its theoretical probability, which is we put 20%. So the difference, we get 19.30% minus 20%, we got negative 1%. So based on this, we can conclude that our theoretical probability is higher by 1%, which is we get the negative value 1%. So let's move to the Oppo. So based on the experiment, we know that Oppo conquered about 10.66% for its experimental probability, which is differ from our theoretical probability, which is 20%. So to calculate the difference, 10.66% minus 20%, we got negative 9%. So same as Xiaomi, Oppo also got its theoretical probability higher by 9% because it got negative value for the difference. And the last one, Vivo. So we know that Vivo conquered about 9.33% for its experimental probability, which is differ from our theoretical probability that is 20%. So same, if you want to calculate the difference, we need to subtract it. So we subtract 9.33% minus 20%, we got negative 11%. And same with Xiaomi and Oppo, Vivo also got theoretical probability higher by 11%. So we can conclude that for Xiaomi, Oppo and Vivo, our theoretical probability is higher by its actual experimental probability. So to conclude everything, we can use probability to be applied in our real life situation. So as you can see in our study, we use probability to analyze the preferences of mobile phone brands among UiTM students. Based on the experiment, the chances of selecting a specific brand represented as a random variable different in each trial. This shows that there are various possible outcomes when determining the preference for mobile phone brands. For this study, the 5 chosen brands were Apple, Samsung, Xiaomi, Oppo and Vivo. The experimental probability for each brand was calculated and compared to the theoretical probability. For example, the experimental probability of selecting Apple was higher than the theoretical probability, while for brands like Vivo, Oppo and Xiaomi, the theoretical probabilities were higher compared to the experimental probability. That's all from us. Thank you. Bye-bye.